Hello, I'm Ellie.
Hello, and I'm Martin.
And today we are in Dundee. And that magnificent ship behind us that you can just see is the Discovery. We are at Discovery Point, and that is RRS Discovery, which stands for Royal Research Ship.
Yep.
And it is the very ship that Captain Scott navigated and took all the way to the Antarctic in 1901.
And he came back this time.
He came and we're about to go and explore the history of that voyage and all about the ship.
Yeah, be interesting.
It will. In the early 1900s, the edges of the Earth were still an uncharted mystery, waiting to be conquered. One man was tasked with an ambitious project to uncover the secrets of the Antarctic, to go where no man had gone before. Captain Robert Falcon Scott. Not only was his mission unique, his ship was too. Its unique construction and innovative design made it an engineering marvel of its time. Scott's groundbreaking polar expedition aboard the RRS Discovery, all the way to the very heart of the South Pole, literally rewrote the history books and forever changed our understanding of the world. Join us as we discover the Discovery and learn all about Scott's journey into maritime history. On the 6th of August 1901, Scott and his crew set off from the Isle of Wight on his epic and pioneering voyage to the Antarctic in a ship called the Royal Research Ship Discovery. Scott was already a distinguished officer in the British Royal Navy. Before setting off on his epic voyage, Captain Scott was promoted to the rank of commander, and King Edward VII, who showed a keen interest in the expedition, appointed Scott a member 4th class of the Royal Victorian Order, his personal gift. The RRS Discovery was built by the Dundee Shipbuilders Company at the city's Victoria Dock. Dundee's shipyards were well known for their robust, flat-bottomed whaling ships, which were designed to plough through the ice in the coldest waters. The RRS Discovery is basically a whaling ship, modified to make it fit for purpose to serve Scott's Royal Geographical Society's mission. It was one of the last wooden 3-masted sailing ships to be built in Britain. It was also the first ship to be designed and built in Britain specifically for scientific exploration. Made from oak, strengthened with internal beams, and clad in a steel bow, the flat-bottomed boat pitched and rolled at sea. It also had a persistent leak. However, it had one or two innovative design features which made it the cutting-edge scientific research ship of its time. It had modern coal-fired auxiliary steam engines, but it had to rely primarily on sail for the simple reason that coal was a precious commodity, and conserving stocks was of prime importance, especially when no one knew how long the mission would take. The total working sail area on the ship was 12,296 square feet. On the outward journey, this massive sail area meant it managed a record run under sail of 223 miles in a single day, recording an average speed of just over 9 knots. Whoever's job it was to sit in the crow's nest would have needed a good head for heights, as it sits a whopping 110 feet up at the top of the main mast. It was an essential aid to navigation, particularly when breaking through pack ice. The lookout would climb into the barrel through a hole in its base. It was enclosed, which meant the lookout could be up there observing through the holes in the barrel's sides, without being exposed to the harsh polar elements. Discovery's funnel had a unique and special design. It had a hinged base, so that it could be laid flat in order to make way for the large sail, which was rigged from the main mast, to be hoisted fully. Uniquely, there are no portholes on Discovery. Under the extreme external pressures of the ice, they would have weakened the ship and caused a potential catastrophic danger, sinking. Instead, brass mushroom vents were let into the deck to provide light and ventilation to the decks below. They were unaffectionately known by the crew as ankle bashers, for obvious and painful reasons. The rudder and two-bladed propeller could be lifted up into the main hull to prevent them from being damaged by ice. This would also allow repairs to be made more easily. The iron-shod bows, a fundamental design of a traditional flat-bottomed whaling boat, were severely raked so that when ramming the ice they would ride up over the margin, crushing the ice with the dead weight of the ship. Discovery's triple expansion engine really came into its own when the ship was manoeuvring through thick packed ice. It could produce up to 450 horsepower and required the stokers to shovel 6 tons of coal a day into the fireboxes. Magnetic surveys were a very important part of the scientific work of the expedition. To be sure of complete accuracy, an exclusion zone around the magnetic observatory was created. No iron or steel was allowed within 30 feet of the area. No one knew how long Scott's mission would take, so 3 years' worth of provisions were taken on board. The provisions were extensive: tropical and polar clothing, sledges, tents, furs, tools, explosives, signal rockets, lamps, candles, a library of over 100 books, medicines and alcohol, aptly described as medical comforts. Much of the food was supplied for free in return for publicity. Custard powder from Bird & Sons, lime juice from Evans, Lesher and Webb, and 2 tons of cocoa powder from Cadbury's. Pretty much every crew member smoked, so 1,000 pounds of tobacco was also stowed. More provisions were taken on board when the ship docked at New Zealand, as well as sacks of food and timber for huts. 23 dogs and 45 sheep were also boarded. The purpose of the expedition was to carry out specific scientific research as directed by the Royal Geographical Society and the Royal Society. Often this research was done in very difficult and dangerous conditions. Scott knew this, so to ensure he had the correct mix of skills, he carefully hand-picked a crew of 48 officers, scientists, civilians and seamen. Not all of them were fortunate to complete the voyage. One seaman fell to his death as the ship set off from New Zealand after taking on board more supplies. Another died when he slipped on the ice and plummeted over the edge of a cliff on a badly managed excursion to Cape Crozier. Ernest Shackleton was sent back on one of the relief ships in 1903, along with 1 or 2 more undesirables whom Scott simply wanted off the ship. On the 3rd of January 1902, after 5 gruelling months at sea, Discovery crossed the Antarctic Circle. Antarctica was sighted on January the 8th, and they reached Cape Adare on the 9th. The main purpose of the expedition was scientific. Scott and his team were to make magnetic surveys and carry out meteorological, oceanographic, geological and biological research. The crew risked frostbite, snow blindness and temperatures as low as -45 degrees to take their measurements and collect specimens. They were even the first to attempt to sledge to the South Pole, and they set a new furthest south record on the 30th of December 1902. The expedition made significant discoveries, identifying over 500 new marine species, including spiders, shrimps, starfish, and shellfish. It was the first to observe an emperor penguin rookery and collect an egg. It mapped vast stretches of uncharted coastlines and mountains and gathered important magnetic, auroral, and seismic data. The findings were published by the Royal Geographical Society, and they greatly advanced our knowledge of Antarctica, an impressive accomplishment under such harsh conditions. During the cold Antarctic winter, the sun remained below the horizon from April to August, but life on board ship remained busy, analysing data, mapping the topography of the area, observing and recording details of the new species that had been discovered, drawing them too, etc., etc. The crew would put on a series of theatrical performances. They'd produce a monthly news magazine called the South Polar Times. There were regular inspections and morning prayers and exercises on the mess deck to keep everyone fit and healthy. The crew and the officers ate the same meals, but they dined separately, of course. The mess deck was an open, shared communal space. The officers' quarters had a long table for meals and meetings, but each officer had their own private cabin with desk, chair, cupboard and bed. There were also separate washing facilities and cuddies for crew and officers. In December 1903, Discovery became trapped in ice with no apparent way out. However, on the 4th of January 1904, 2 relief ships arrived, finally freeing the Discovery with controlled explosions on February the 16th. Now free from her icy prison, Discovery headed for home. On the way, Scott led Discovery on a surveying voyage along the coast of Victoria Land. By April, they were back in New Zealand. On the 10th of September 1904, Discovery sailed into Spithead near Portsmouth to a rapturous reception. Scott was acclaimed as a national hero and awarded numerous honours. In order to board the ship, you must first make your way through a very well-appointed and incredibly interesting exhibition where you learn about the ship, its crew, and the historic mission they were all part of. The exhibition is laid out in various sections, each one dedicated to a particular topic relating to the mission. It is fascinating and full of fabulous facts and artifacts about this incredible voyage into the unknown. There is also an observatory at the top of the building with amazing views over the city of Dundee. The ship itself is in dry dock and is under constant maintenance. The Discovery Centre, at Discovery Point, lies on the banks of the River Dee near the Tay Bridge. The iconic and ship-shaped Victoria and Albert Museum is right next door. A pay and display car park is close by and, although there is a shop and toilets in the centre, there is no cafe, but there are plenty of eateries within easy reach. We had an amazing day, and it's one we won't forget for a long while. Makes me wonder what they're cooking. Going to play with the penguins for a bit. I'm happy.
Oh, just a kiddie at heart.
I like penguins. I've always liked penguins.
You like any animal.
True.
It's amazing how we've managed to get so much in such a small space.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
Leant on a chair as I went past and I didn't expect it to swivel, go round. Where's my dinner then?
How is your...
Looking forward to my dinner, I'm hungry.
I'm looking forward to my breakfast.
Learning the ropes. Have you enjoyed yourself?
Yeah. I'm a little sailor.
You're a little sailor.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
It really is interesting.
There's just so much to it. It's just totally amazing, and I've really enjoyed it.
The museum bit was really interesting, well laid out, well thought, and then the ship is just icing on the cake.
It doesn't look very big, but there's a lot to explore. I would imagine with all that crew, it would have been quite cramped.
Yeah, 49 crew.
Yeah, but this is the actual ship that went to Antarctica, and that's an amazing thing in itself, to think you're standing on a piece of history like that.
Yeah.
Well, we've thoroughly enjoyed it, and we'd recommend, if you're ever in Dundee, please come along and have a look.
Certainly do.
Yeah. Thanks ever so much for watching, and we will see you on our next adventure, wherever that is.
Wherever he takes us.
Cheerio.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
bye.